Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lynn or Lion if you don't know me. A bronzy look is one of my absolute favorites to do, especially with like those very sun-kissed cheeks. But if you have pale skin, because you are quite pale, it is a little bit difficult to do. And if you are pale like me, you know that bronzer can become orange very quickly, become a non-palumpa, oompa loompa very quickly. Today I kind of want to show you my little tips and tricks and the products that I like to use for my complexion and my skin type to create a very bronzy, summery, sun-kissed makeup look. So if you want to look glowy and bronzy like this, keep on watching. First, the hair out of my face because my bangs are extreme. Take on a different shape every single time I brush them. I don't know why. First things first, we're going to prep our skin. I have a dry skin type, and what I do love about a summery bronzy makeup look is the fact that the skin is also quite dewy and hydrated and just looks very plump. Hydrated and moisturized skin also just is a great canvas for the makeup that we're going to put on top, so I'm going to do that first. Coincidentally, I am actually not going to use SPF today. That is my biggest recommendation that I would otherwise say, especially if you go outdoors. Make sure you wear your SPF, of course. The first thing that I'm going to apply is the Byoma Hydrating Milky Toner. So this is the toner that I use for the redness or underlying rosacea that I have. It's a little bit tricky to see, especially in this kind of lighting, but my skin permanently a little bit red always. And because I have dry skin and like redness, a toner like this one just really helps to calm down my skin while adding hydration to this desert of a feeling. So yeah, I always use this one. I usually use just my hands. I don't know if you're supposed to do it on a cotton pad, but I don't. So I'm take it on my hands and then I just apply it to my skin. I'm gonna turn red really quickly, by the way, just because my skin is sensitive. Immediately when I apply it, it's like my skin is like, give me the moisture. Next up, because we are going to use a lot of cream products because I do have dry skin, I am going to go in with a very lightweight and thin gel cream. This is the Byoma Moisturizing Gel Cream. So I just take a couple of pumps of this and then I also apply this to my face. And this is going to create an amazing base, but most of all, it is just very hydrating and soothing for my skin. When makeup goes on top of like just dry skin, picks up on the dryness, on the dry patches, on the fine lines. If you make sure that your skin is hydrated and plump and moisturized, it's going to blend a lot better, and especially with bronzer and the powders and the colors that we're going to be using today, we want to make sure that everything is able to blend really nicely so don't get patchy or muddy or whatever. Lastly, in the kind of like prepping stage of this makeup, I am going to use the Essence Bouncy Plump Smoothing Primer, but most of all, it's going to form a barrier between the makeup that I'm going to put on top and my skincare. Again, like I said before, I'm going to be using a lot of cream products, so I want to make sure that there's something in between my skincare and my makeup that is also slightly gripping, that really grips onto the makeup, and the makeup that I put on top has something to kind of lay on top of. Now for foundation, I'm actually going to be using a skin tint. A skin tint is something, especially if you have dry skin, kind of like a blessing in disguise. Skin tints don't have a lot of coverage, but they do have that hydrated look most of the time, like a very natural, slightly dewy finish. And for a bronzy makeup look, that's kind of what you want. So just take any skin tint that really matches your complexion. One that I'm going to be using today is the Makeup Forever Super Boost Perfecting Moisture Boosting Skin Tint. There we go. Now my skin looks fresh and dewy and hydrated and plump and just like ready for summer. I'm gonna move on to where the summery bronzy bit begins. So I'm first going to apply some blush. For a bronzy makeup look, I personally love using shades that are a little bit warmer in tone. Obviously, I'm not going to use any cool tone pinks. I have a couple that I want to show you today that are personally my favorites for like a very summery makeup look. The first one is the Catrice Blush and Charm Multi-Stick, and this is in the shade Toasted Toffee. I feel like this is a very trendy color right now. It's definitely one of those like go-to sun-kissed colors. So as you can see, this is a beautiful like reddish brown color. I personally really like these type of shades because they replicate a sunburn of like a day or two old so beautifully, but without the skin damage, which is really good. Another one that I really like is a red blush, and this is the NYX Fat Cheeks Juicy Plump Blush in the shade Peach Plunge. This looks very intimidating, I am aware. It is a beautiful stunning shade, especially once you blend it out. So this is also definitely like a summer shade for me. This is MAC Blush Please. This is a little bit more on the neutral side. As you can see, it's a little bit more orangey peachy. An overall warmth without being too much, and if you're intimidated by the first two colors, this one is beautiful. In that realm, I also have powder blushes that I'm going to use at the end of the video. This is the MAC Skinfinish Colourstruck blush in the shade Velvet Teddy. Again, one of my favorites, has a beautiful warmth. It's a little bit more red, a little bit more on the purpley side than Blush Please. This is the Catrice Soft Blur powder blush in the shade 030 Cinnamon Sugar. Reminiscent of this one, but I feel like this one is a little bit more brown. This is a little bit more peachy, the one from Catrice. But this is also a shade that works really well if you're looking for like that summer shade. So this is the Catrice Cinnamon Sugar. Then we have Velvet Teddy by MAC, Blush Please by MAC, the NYX Peach Plunge, and the Catrice one in Toasted Toffee. So these are my favorite colors for like a summery sun-kissed bronzy makeup look. So now that I've swatched all of those for you, we're going to apply it as well. So I'm gonna start with the Catrice blush, the inside of my thumb. That's where I'm going to apply this, and as you can see, it's such a beautiful color. I'm going to apply it like where it flatters my face, which is more towards the outside. But I'm also going to take it across the nose because that is a very high point of my face, and that is where the sun naturally hits, so I do want to apply it right there. I'm also placing the blush slightly higher on the cheekbone right here to keep everything very summery. One thing I would recommend is not applying this directly to your face, especially if you have more pale skin, because otherwise the saturation and the pigmentation of this color can maybe really slap you in the face. I find that by applying it on the palm of my thumb and then applying it with my brush and then again tapping it off, you get a real control of how much color you actually apply. Now I do want to add a little bit of freshness to this look, so I'm also going to use the NYX one. This is the red blush. Just going to apply a little bit on the back of my hand again, and this one I'm going to apply a little bit more on the apples of my cheeks to recreate almost that sunburn kind of vibe without it being too pigmented. So as you can see, now it looks like I've been laying in the sun a little bit too much, but my face doesn't look orange and it doesn't look very clown-like with the blush that we use. Now we're gonna move on to bronzer, and before I move on to bronzer, I want to give you a few tips, especially if you have pale skin, to kind of get that bronzy makeup look without it looking muddy, orange, or like an Oompa Loompa, because it's very easy if you have a paler complexion to apply too much bronzer. First of all, the shade is everything. Make sure that you don't use a bronzer that is too dark for your complexion. You don't want to use a bronzer that is too orange or red. One of the things that I found that works really well for my neutral complexion are bronzers that are quite neutral or leaning towards more of a yellowy undertone. One other thing that I want to mention as well is if you have dry skin, baby cream bronzers are also a really good way to go about it, especially if you're a little bit like hesitant to try bronzer, if you want that summery makeup look but you're kind of scared of it. Cream bronzers are usually just a very forgiving product. They tend to be a little bit more on the sheer side and have a little bit of like that translucency. The cream bronzer that I'm going to show you though is like my absolute favorite, and it's the one that I'm going to use today to create a bronzy look. I'm going to show you my 4 favorite bronzers for a summery glowy makeup look. The one that I'm going to apply today, gosh, if you watch my channel you know that I love this product. This is the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer. So this is amazing. Everything that I talked about what a bronzer should be for a pale complexion, and if you want to achieve like that bronzy summery makeup look, listen to me. purchased my first one a couple of years ago, completely emptied that one, okay? Did you hear that? I completely emptied a bronzer, a cream bronzer. This is like a skin tint, but then in a cream bronzer form. It is absolutely amazing and I cannot rave about this enough. It has that opacity that I love so much. It lets your skin shine through. It's not a streak of bronzer, like, you know, a paint stripe on your face. The only thing that I would say, because it's quite emollient, if you have oily skin, this is still a great product, but you're gonna want to set it down. This is what it looks like. As you can see, it has a little bit of warmth, but it's a very neutral bronzer at the same time. But it's not orange, it's not red, it's a very neutral yellowy kind of bronzer that has warmth to it. These and their undertone are definitely where it's at, and especially with all of the other glowy and creamy products that we already have applied, you're gonna want to have something that is going to set your makeup because otherwise this makeup is very pretty and very summery and very dewy, but it's not going to last, okay? It's gonna fade quicker than you can imagine. So I'm quickly going to talk about them. The first one is the Essence Soft Touch Butter Bronzer in the shade 10 Whipped Buttercup. Again, you can already tell this is not orange, okay? I used to have some Club from Essence, their bronzer. It's like a very big pan as well. That was orange, okay? That was Oompa Loompa Town. And this has even more of that yellowy undertone that I was talking about. And as you can see, it also has a little bit of that shine. It's a very smooth bronzer, which I appreciate. Then another one of my favorites is the Nabla Skin Bronzing in the shade Ambra. I've had this one for years and it is a beautiful formula. This is more of like a glowy bronzer, more on that neutral to almost like pinky side. It has a little bit of red in it, but it's not a lot and it's definitely not orange. The final one I talked about very briefly, this is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer in the shade, I think it's... Quick pause. So the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer in the shade 1. I'm gonna have to repress this. I unfortunately can also not swatch it right now. You can't even see it. Okay, that's what I thought. This bronzer for me is actually really perfect. This bronzer for me is great on the days where I want a summery makeup look, but I don't want the bronzer to be overpowering because I have a lot of blush on, for example. Yeah, I'm gonna have to repress this. It's amazing. You cannot see my swatch because it is impossible to swatch right now, but this is also a recommendation. Just be aware that if you have like a big pen, the product can come flying out. So now, without further ado, I am going to apply the bronzer to my face. I'm gonna start with the Makeup by Mario Skin Enhancer because I cannot rave about this product and then like not use it. You know, it's my favorite, so we have to use it. So where I'm going to apply the bronzer, I'm gonna apply the bronzer on my forehead, the top of my forehead, my temples right here, really fill those in, the high parts of my cheekbones and really going onto the ear as well, a little bit on the sides of my nose and then also on the eyeballs right here, because I feel like adding bronzer in your eyeballs, I feel like adding bronzer in your eye socket right here really pulls the look together and makes it very, very bronzy. So I'm gonna do that. I also want to recommend to tap in lightly and to really tap off the excess of product on your brush because pale skin picks up pigmentation really quickly, so you're gonna be able to see that really quickly. And I would also recommend to tap instead of drag the product, because tapping is a little bit better when it comes to the blending application, and also when you drag, it's going to move your foundation and the products underneath. So, and as you can see, this blends like butter. And then I'm going to set that bronzer with the Nabla Skin Bronzing in the shade Ambra. Picking up a big old brush, this is a Morphe 161. Picking up that product and setting the bronzer, again using tapping motions. And then I'm also going to use a powder blush to set the blush, the cream blush. So I'm going to use the MAC Skin Finish blush in the shade Velvet Teddy, and just lightly dusting that on top of the cheeks. And then finally, I am going to add a little bit of concealer because we haven't applied concealer. When it comes to this like sun-kissed bronzy makeup look, I like to apply my concealer at the very end to balance out any kind of parts that are maybe a little bit too bronzy, but also of course to camouflage these under eyes, which are actually not that bad lately. I'm going to use my House Labs concealer and just apply a little dot underneath my eyes and then also the sides of my nose and and right underneath this hollowness that I have right here. And then I'm going to brighten up the under eyes with the L'Oreal Paris True Match Radiant Serum Concealer just a little bit on top of that House Labs underneath the eyes. And then I'm also going to blend that out, and this is going to bring back the balance of my actual skin tone. And also it's going to clean up this line right here. And even though I have dry skin, I do use powder, especially to make my makeup last. I have a video up of how I get long-lasting makeup with dry skin while using powder, so if you want to see that, somewhere here. So I'm just gonna add one final layer of powder to my base to just kind of set the makeup one final time. So I'm gonna apply some mascara and a lip balm, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, and that completes today's summery, glowy, dewy, hydrated, plump, summery makeup look. Yeah, this is kind of like my take on it, especially with pale skin and bronziness. You always have to be a little bit careful, but I'm really happy with how everything came out. I really hope you learned something from the products that I showed that work for me, to the tips of like picking the right shades, to where you can apply everything. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you want to learn next, what you want to see next, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!